It's time for Southern Fried Baseball, presented by College Baseball Central. Hosted by Jake McKeever as he talks everything SEC baseball and more.
Welcome back, College Baseball Central fans. Week 1 is behind us in the SEC. Andrew and Jake back again here to recap Week 1. We're going to go ahead and address the elephant in the room. It took me an hour and a half to get home from work today, so we are doing a 30-minute delayed show. So thanks everybody for tuning in. Andrew, other than the delays with me, how are we doing today?
Doing good. Finally excited to talk about the first official week of SEC conference play.
Yep. While there are no green teams in the SEC, we did want to give a shout out to one of our former members, the Tulane Green Wave. This feels like their day in the SEC, you know?
Yeah.
Oh, I got to sneeze. Oh, false alarm. We'll start with kind of the games that got moved up early. Arkansas takes 2 of 3 from Ole Miss. They do a quote-unquote gentleman's sweep as they lose on Friday night. They move Zach Root into the Friday night role, and he immediately kind of gets shelled a little bit. They move Gabe Gackle into the Saturday role, and he absolutely shoves. And then Cheese at the back end of that bullpen, or at the back end of that rotation, brought it home for Arkansas on Sunday. Obviously, the Aloy boys were still doing Aloy boy things. Sousa's starting to come around. I mean, overall, I came away actually really impressed with Ole Miss. I know that's really weird to say because they dropped 2 of 3 at home, but that punch in the mouth on Friday night really showed me a lot about Ole Miss.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, Hunter Elliott went out there and set the tone. It stinks that it kind of didn't translate to Saturday and Sunday, but I mean, you saw it first pitch that. Or not first, it might have been the first pitch that Zach Root threw. Hayden Federico sent it over the left field wall, and Swayze was going crazy. Hunter Elliott shoved this weekend. But, yeah, Arkansas responded well after dropping that first game. You mentioned it. Gackle got pushed back a day, and he shoved. And then the bullpen, I was more impressed with Arkansas's bullpen. They gave up 9 runs, or the pitching staff gave up 9 runs on Sunday, but they bear down at the end of the game to keep Ole Miss quiet. But I mean, the Aloy brothers,
they're just so good. It feels like Arkansas has a monopoly on these Hawaiians coming up. But before we talk about Arkansas, Hayden Federico just continued to impress. If you remember him last year. I'm sure if you follow Louisiana baseball, even at all, Andrew, he was on that West Monroe team that was just absolutely loaded.
Yep.
He's a shortstop by trade. He's DHing for them a little bit. Luke Hill continues to kind of impress. It's quietly a really deep lineup from a lot of guys that they didn't expect to get stuff from. Chad Uttermark coming over too is another one that's really impressed me. But for Arkansas, man, I mean, they just have so much depth, it feels like. Like even when guys don't click, it feels like Dave Van Horn just has so much feel for this team. I mean, you can bring Camden Kozell off the bench. I think they've run Kendall Diggs off the bench a few times. Davelin's another guy. I know that he didn't really play that much, he played. I was just looking at the wrong lineup. Davelin's another guy. I feel like he doesn't strike out a ton at the top of that lineup, but he really sets a nice tone for this Arkansas lineup that really kind of does damage. Again, Aloy is playing like an all SEC shortstop. Yeah. His brother is one-upping him in every sense of the word. I really like the way Arkansas responded. It feels like at times in the past they really have kind of folded the tent when they get punched in the mouth on Friday night. It was really impressive to watch them bounce back on Saturday and Sunday, I will say that. Yeah,
and I think that played a little into why Dave Van Horn pushed back Gabe Gackle. Maybe he was expecting the lineup to come out a little flat. Maybe pitching wasn't going to be as good on Friday. Maybe he had a feeling that Ole Miss was going to come out hot on a Friday in the first SEC game, and he knew that he had his guy right there Saturday to help them bounce back real quick.
Yeah, it was a really impressive outing. It feels like Dave Van Horn is just a puppet master with some of these kids in a good way. Ole Miss, obviously, we'll talk about them more when we do our preview show, but I came away a lot more impressed than I thought I would from Ole Miss. But let's go ahead and move on to a team that is number 4 in the newly mentioned D1 poll. The Georgia Bulldogs took the game Friday, lost on Saturday. Had an absolute shootout on Sunday. Fun fact, Georgia baseball scored more runs on Sunday than Georgia football against Kentucky. The pitching was for Georgia continue to be evident at the starting pitching role. They gave up runs in the first all 3 innings, and ultimately it didn't matter. Like, I know that this is a good bullpen. It's starting to get a little bit overtaxed, but they can kind of hit their way through some of their deficiencies, I would say.
Yeah, and I think this weekend going into Gainesville and seeing Florida this weekend, it's going to be a good test for that bullpen. I'm just not. I have Georgia ranked 13, I think, in my poll. I'm not high on Georgia as many people are. I just think this pitching staff sooner or later is going to get exposed for just how inconsistent they've been, especially from that starting role. I mean, Leighton Finley, he went out there yesterday, and I'm pretty sure he gave up home run after home run the first, and
I will say it is very small. It is a very small ballpark.
And the wind was blowing out from the videos I saw on Twitter. The wind was blowing out. And it's very weird to say that Georgia's pitching staff is not living up to the hype that, looking at who their head coach is, Wes Johnson, a former MLB pitching coach and former LSU pitching coach. I'm just really shocked that this Georgia pitching staff hasn't been as good. But the bats, I mean, you can't. Rylan Zaborowski, I'm pretty sure he got SEC Player of the Week. Or, no, Robbie Burnett did. Robbie Burnett and Rylan, they were phenomenal this weekend against Kentucky. But that lefty Kentucky threw on Saturday, I thought he was very good. I can't think of the name right now. But I
can look up the name for you. But yeah, Kentucky quietly has a pretty scrappy pitching staff. I think that was the one thing that I really took away from it, is that it's a very underrated one. Obviously, Nick McKay. I mean, you knew all along that Nick McKay wasn't going to go sub 0.5 ERA. I think he pitched decent. I think Georgia chased him in the third or fourth. I'd have to double check. But, I mean, Georgia won a game on Friday night where their Friday night guy recorded 1 out.
Yeah, it was.
And I get Charlie Goldstein is still getting ramped up. I get that he's coming back from the injuries. He only threw 26 pitches, though. That's not really a training wheels. I will say this. Wasn't Colton Smith supposed to be in the weekend rotation? And now he's their solid bullpen arm. That it feels like they treat him almost like an opener, and then he comes in, and obviously they use him a ton, and they use him. But wasn't he supposed to be in the rotation? Or am I misremembering that?
He was supposed to slot into that Saturday spot early on, but
I thought it was him and Leighton Finley back and forth for that Friday role, and then they were like, okay, when Goldstein gets ramped up. I can't remember if it's Eli or Charlie. I'm gonna be honest with you. I think
it was Colton Smith and Eli. I think
Saturday for Kentucky, it was Ben Cleaver. Ben Cleaver put 4 1/3, 5 hits, 4 runs. I think that I will say this about this Georgia lineup: it's a deep lineup. I mean, you have Hunter Henry hitting down to the 9 hole. They've had Colby Branch down in the 9 hole a few times. Colby Branch would probably be a 3 or 4. And some other teams in the SEC. It's a very deep lineup that you really have to navigate. They love to hit the long ball. Trey Phelps, I think, is quietly having another really, really tremendous year. There was a lot going into this series for me with Nolan McCarthy, and it felt like at least in the first 2 games he really didn't show up. And then on Sunday, obviously, he kind of delivered. But I came away really impressed with Kentucky. I know these are the 2 series where I'm like, okay, even though you lost 2 of 3, it's hard to go on the road in the SEC. I know a lot of SEC teams won. But, I mean, Kentucky was in the arena. It was 10-10 really late in that game yesterday before they kind of ran out of pitching.
Yeah.
I know that coming into the year, Kentucky wasn't supposed to be this brash, banging around the yard, scoring double-digit runs. Obviously, Luke Lawrence and Tyler Bell are having better years than everybody thought. But does it scare you about the Georgia bullpen that they gave up 10 runs to Kentucky? Because I was under the impression Kentucky was going to be a pitching-first team.
Yeah. It scares me a little because you're not going to be able to win you're not going to be able to win the SEC without having a decent or solid bullpen. You can't be running out of arms. I understand it was Sunday and you were running guys out there left and right, but from what I've heard, Kentucky is pretty banged up on the pitching side. From what I saw last week in the availability report for the SEC, they were still down a couple arms. So
Yeah, but I mean, there's another one that have a really good lineup. I mean, Cole Higgs, I think for a while there, he was the number one hitter in the SEC. Obviously, we're going to talk about more Kentucky and Georgia in the preview show. But I mean, for this, I felt like Georgia isn't as good as people think. Kentucky's maybe a little bit better than they think. I know my rankings, I think I only dropped them like one spot. In Georgia, I have it 10, but I'm going to be honest with you, I really went back and forth with moving them in front of Texas. But I was like, well, they won 2 of 3 at home. Like, you really can't fault them for that. Ultimately, like, I don't know. I feel like everybody has Georgia in this, like, tier 1 in the SEC. Yeah. And they feel like they're a step back from Tennessee, LSU, even Arkansas to some extent. Like, they just have a lot of problems. And again, I think they're a quality team. I think that they're like in that tier 2, but I mean, they have a lot of issues.
Yeah, I wouldn't have them in that top tier either. I think they would probably be one of the top tiers of tier 2, but I wouldn't put them in the same sentence as LSU or Tennessee, LSU, Arkansas, and now even Texas.
Yeah, I wouldn't put anybody in the same breath as Tennessee. I'm going to be honest with you.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a great segue into our next team, the Tennessee Volunteers. They won big. They won from behind. They won early. They swept a really talented Florida team. I will say Florida was kind of banged up, and they're missing a few bullpen arms, and that kind of showed on Saturday when it was 1-0, and they have a 9-run 7th inning. I don't know how you beat this Tennessee team. I really don't, because I said on Friday, I'm like, okay, like, maybe you got to get them early and then hold on. I mean, Florida put up a 4 spot on Sunday, I believe, and it didn't matter at all. Like, they just kind of chipped away. When I was talking to a few SEC coaches, they're like, yeah, sometimes you can kind of get them to kick the ball around, and that's kind of how they become beatable. They really don't do that this year. Like, they are a deep team. Our buddy Sam, Tennessee hasn't lost a series in a year, period. It's just unfathomable how hungry this team is with how much they've already accomplished. I would say the most impressive thing for me was Marcus Phillips' start on Saturday. Yes. I know that's going to end up being probably the footnote because of the 9-run inning, but Marcus Phillips and then is it Aiden King?
Yeah, Aiden King.
Aiden King. I mean, that was a legit Saturday thing for like a long time, and then Tennessee obviously exploded. Aiden King's first start. When I was talking to Kevin O'Sullivan, he said, yeah, I feel like we're going to be okay. Like, I kind of, Aiden King was a guy without a spot. Now he's slotted in. There's not too many things that you can take away from a sweep, but what impressed you or caught your eye about this Florida Gators team?
I think the way they got Liam Doyle out of the game on Friday night. They got Doyle to throw 105 pitches, and Doyle didn't even go 5 innings. They worked Doyle out of the game. Surely they did lose 5-3, but they worked Doyle out of the game. They were working his pitch count. They did strike out 6 times against him, only worked 2 walks, but they were still working some really good at-bats against Liam Doyle.
I think that's the formula, is that you work these quality at-bats against Liam Doyle. I will say, if you're a Florida kind of player or a Florida coach, you have to feel like that one Friday night got away from you. They had the kind of, I wouldn't say chicken shit call because it was the right call, but they have an interference. They have a hit by pitch. They ran themselves out of innings where Tennessee threw them out at the plate, I believe. Like, again, Tennessee won the game and deserved to win the game, but you kind of felt like Florida pissed away that game on Friday night with what they accomplished against Liam Doyle that not too many teams can. And then on Saturday, they erase all doubt. They're like, okay. And then Sunday, you're like, okay, I don't know. Like, hey, I don't think Tennessee has a Sunday guy. They roll out like an entire staff and just dominate the game. Like, it was really a crazy thing to see because they won a game. They won 3 games 3 different ways. They won it with the offense. They won it with the bullpen. They run it from behind. Like, it was just a masterclass from Tony V. Like, they win 7-4. They're down 4 in the 4th. They really kind of get to Billy Barlow, who Billy Barlow's a good bullpen arm for them. Dylan Loy, 3 innings, 1 hit, 0 earned runs. Nate Snead for the save, 2 innings, 1 hit, 0 runs allowed. Tanner Franklin coming back on short rest, 2 1/3, 1 hit, 0 runs allowed. I mean, they only allowed 1 true run, and it was from Braden Arvinson, who's another guy that they're going to get back. It's just so scary to me when they get guys who don't have their sharpest stuff, like Liam Doyle, like Brandon Arvinson, that they could run through. I know I said it on Friday and got in a lot of trouble about Texas running out 7. There's like 10 guys I trust in this Tennessee bullpen.
Yeah, I was really impressed with how both Dylan Loy and Nate Snead, they both came back on short rest, and I think that's a good thing for this Tennessee bullpen. And I mean, look at it. You had Tegan Kuhns go for Tennessee. He went 2 2/3 to start off this game, and I'm pretty sure he's a freshman or a sophomore. And like we talked about Aiden King and Tegan's, he's a freshman.
Yeah, he's a freshman from
I think it's
Gettysburg of all places.
I think that's like really impressive to be able to go out there and even though you're at home, it's still such like a vibrant environment. It's one of the best environments in college baseball to go out there and give. By the stat book, it's not a quality start, but it still was a quality start in the way he handed it to the bullpen. Yeah, Arvidsson did get banged up a little, but he laid it perfectly to give it to Tanner Franklin, Dylan Loy, and then Nate Snead for the win.
Yeah, I will say this. I was talking to Rob Vaughn on the field, and I was like, how do you think you're going to beat this Tennessee team? He goes, honestly, I have no idea. He goes, we're going to have to find some kind of advanced scouting. Mm-hmm. I thought it was overtax the bullpen, and then on Sunday they'll be out of arms, and they bring guys back on short rest. I think the thing that's been most impressive about this Tennessee team so far is it's been the freshmen. They have 4 freshmen. I know because you and I were going through the list of all the freshmen that get legitimate playing time. Tennessee is starting the most freshmen of any team in the SEC, and those freshmen are delivering. Like, even when they have guys that have quote-unquote off weekends, like I'm just looking up his name because his name does elude me here, like Levi Clark, for example. Levi Clark's been setting the world on fire. He's hitting over 400. He doesn't really have the best weekend, and it doesn't really matter because Tennessee has so many different guys, like Stone Lawless, Cannon Peebles. Like, it's so odd in a good way that Tennessee has so many guys. Like, it feels like an MLB The Show when you start cheating and you jack up all the stats for all of your players. Like, it really is too easy for this Tennessee team.
Yeah, but I think it's especially on Tony V and how he runs that program in Tennessee. Those freshmen, they get onto campus, they go to summer school, and they instantly buy in, and they get the feel that the program has, and they instantly click with the program, and that's why they get these opportunities, and that's why they succeed at Tennessee.
It really is. I mean, Tony V talked about it in Houston, that it feels like there were 3 teams at one point. You had the freshmen that were coming in, you had the guys that were here last year that won the national championship, and you had the transfer guys, and, you know, Andrew Fisher, Liam Doyle, Gavin Keelan, and he said they all just instantly meshed. Like, the transfers kept the guys that were here last year hungry. The guys that were here last year, you know, mentored the freshmen. He said that it's not that he didn't have guys mentor the freshmen. He's like, it really was crazy how much the upperclassmen mentored these freshmen, and then the freshmen pushing the transfers. Like, it's seriously, it's like a love triangle with how good this program is run.
Yeah.
A+ weekend for Tennessee. I'm sure we'll talk ad nauseum about their upcoming matchup with Bama, which brings us to the next one that Mike and I were actually in the house to see. Bama absolutely sweeps Texas A&M. Friday and Saturday, they did it behind top of the 9th inning home runs. And then Sunday, Bobby Adcock absolutely shoves, going 7 innings. I think the ultimate way to sum up the weekend for Alabama is that they had guys throwing in the bullpen after their win on Sunday. It was a complete overwhelming from a Texas A&M standpoint. Only 4 hits on Sunday from Bobby Adcock, none of them extra bases. Hayden Schott had the only home run for Texas A&M. I've never seen an A&M offense as pedantic and laid back as they are. Yeah. And I know that I got a lot of criticism for critiquing the Aggies, so I'll try and be more Bama positive, but I'm going to be honest. Every single coach that I've talked to in the SEC has said that they're going to turn it a corner, that they're going to click, and that Michael Early is a fantastic coach. But I'll say this about it, then we can move on to Alabama. It's important to remember that this isn't Michael Early's team. That, yes, these are guys that he coached last year, but they don't bunt, they don't hit and run. This is Jim Schlossnagel's team that Michael Early is kind of manning the ship. I think that everybody that's at A&M needs to kind of take a step back, chill a little bit, because I don't think I found a single coach that has said something bad about Michael Early. I've even kind of gone looking for it a little bit.
Yeah, everything I've heard from people I've talked to in the college baseball industry, reporters, coaches, players that have played against Texas A&M, they've all said the same thing about Michael Early. He's a phenomenal coach, and he will guide this Texas A&M team. But man, was I wrong. I don't know if you remember our pick'ems. I had A&M sweeping. I thought that this team was going to come in hungry for the SEC, and I was just wrong.
They're not. Like, they're not at all. Like,
Yeah.
it's so weird because, like, it's one thing to be an active dugout like Arizona, Oklahoma State.
Yeah.
But Mike and I went to Abilene Christian versus Sam Houston for some reason. Micah wanted to go. Don't ask me why. This will probably be the only time Abilene Christian will ever be mentioned in Southern Fried Baseball. They were, like, ecstatic in the dugout. And they were playing a Sam team that had lost 9 in a row. Like, they wanted to be there. They were hungry to be there. And I sit in the camera well at A&M, and I can't hear a single thing. Like, Mike and I can have legitimate conversations back and forth, where Alabama, like, we have to wait, like, when the pitchers are pitching or stuff like that. Like, and I get that Michael Early's a quiet guy, and I get that teams kind of take on the persona of their coach. But it feels I won't tell you who said this because it is somebody very important in A&M media. It feels like a minor league team that only wants to get better and focus on themselves and doesn't care if the team wins or loses. And that's kind of the vibe of this A&M team. Like, they have a lot of guys that are going to play on – they have a lot of guys that are going to get drafted. But they need somebody to tell them that they suck, I think is what it is. They've had too many people coddling them. Everybody's kind of been afraid to say it because, like you said, everybody loves Michael Early. I think they needed a humbling.
They've been getting it all year so far.
No, everybody's had excuses for him. Every single person said, like when they lost to Cal Poly, they were like, "Oh yeah, it's on Sunday," and they were at the end of the bullpen. When they lost in Houston, they were like, "Oh yeah, like they were in the games. Like those will eventually go your way." I think this is the first time that no one had an excuse for them.
Yeah, I'm still shocked about this A&M team right now. I mean, you look at their big names. You look at Jace. You look at Kent. It's like they're not burning the world right now with college baseball, because going into this year, all we heard was, "Wow, Jace Lovietta, he's going to be a top 5 MLB prospect." And you look at MLB boards, he still will be. When June comes around, he'll still get picked in the top 3 picks probably.
Yeah, I mean, Malcolm Moore hit under 200 and went in the first round. So
yeah,
he's not going to fall that far.
I'm just shocked about this A&M team, and I'm getting more and more hyped about this Bama team. I think this Bama team.
I will say that's a good transition into Bama. This Bama team is, I know that Monty said it to me when they went into Jacksonville. They're legit. Like Zane Adams, I know that I had him. I was higher on him than most people, probably because I saw him in high school. Mm-hmm. I think he's a top 5 Friday night guy. Like, he has legit Friday night stuff. He absolutely shoves. And then his counterpart on Saturday might be even better. Like, Riley Quick threw 100. His off speed had a ton of bite. His fastball had really good movement. I was talking to a scout who said, "Yeah, you guys, this guy's probably the biggest riser on the year for us. He's coming off Tommy John throwing 100 miles an hour. He's going to be a day 1 pick." And granted, that doesn't mean what it meant last year in terms of being in the first round because of how the new format is. But I will say this about Bobby Alcock. Bobby Alcock pitched the game of his life, but by advanced metrics, that shows you more about how A&M is from an approach standpoint. They might be the only team in the country, and we're going back to A&M with negativity. They would be the only team in the country that doesn't want to be in a 3-1 count, like legitimately.
Yeah, I mean, so Bobby Alcock, he only walked 2 guys. It seemed like he did get into some deep counts, but A&M gifted him. And this is nothing against Bobby Alcock. He threw phenomenal. He got SEC Pitcher of the Week, right?
Yes, I should say that when I'm talking about Bobby Alcock not being good, he is still very good on a national sense, and he is above average in an SEC sense just because of how deep it is. But he's not going to be the Friday night guy that's striking out double-digit Ks every single week and is going to toss the ball to him saying, "Hey, we're going to get 7 out of you." But I think the one thing that really impressed me the most about this Bama team is just how many guys up and down this lineup just absolutely rake. Like Reggie, I think it's Bonomolo, like in their 9-hole. Like he's a dude. They have a ton of lineup depth. They have a ton of lineup versatility. They're another one of those things where I will say this. They don't have any freshmen that start in the field for them, but they have guys that are coming off of transfers from Power 5 schools where they really weren't wanted the most in Jason Torres and Brady Neal. They have guys that have been around Bama and waited their turn a ton, like Will Hodo, like Coleman Mizell, like Cade Snell. And then they have an absolute monster superstar in Justin LeBron that leads the country in either home runs or RBIs. I'll have to double check. It's RBIs.
He's tied with home runs with the Georgia guy, Zelensky.
Yeah. I mean, they are like legit. And then the other thing too is Will Platner's starting to play better for him. Brendan Norton. I think the thing that really impressed me about this Bama team is that they know that they're good, but at the same time, they still play with that chip on their shoulder, like Rob Vaughn's always been as a player and a coach. Yeah. Like they have this shirt that says TRB. I won't say what it is because they asked me not to say what it is, but they have a shirt that they wear in pregame that says TRB, and it's not the MVP. It's the guy that's just the baddest son of a bitch, the guy that is willing to make that diving play in the hole, willing to play through an injury, willing to play through a sickness. Yeah. And they would rather get that than, like, for example, Will Hodo hits a grand slam in the top of the 9th, and he's not the tough, rugged bastard. Like, that's the thing that just exemplifies this team, is that they would rather make that diving play in the hole than knock in the tying run, it feels like. And I know that's crazy to say, but that's kind of what they play for. They really play to be like this. They really play to have a dirty-ass uniform.
Yeah. Yeah, this team's just been nothing but like exceeding expectations already. I think sooner or later, if they keep up this pace, I know they got Tennessee coming up, but I think we can be talking about a Tuscaloosa regional. And sooner or later, we're going to keep on seeing this lineup getting better and better because they will start to face even more tougher SEC pitching. We're going to see Justin LeBron starting to probably get walked or pitched around now. Because
I think he's already kind of getting that treatment. And Cade Snell, for example, he hits kind of right near LeBron. Mm-hmm. On Sunday, he went 3 for 4 with 2 doubles and a home run, and he was one of their 2 runs. He's absolutely incredible. Bryce Fowler in right field has an absolute cannon. Like, I'm very wary because they beat Tennessee last year and then kind of ran out of gas at the end. It feels like this team's not going to run out of gas. I'm going to be honest with you.
Yeah, I don't see that from this team. I see this team just getting better and better. I mean, we talked about it. Rob Vaughn, he's always been that guy that had a chip on his shoulder as a player and a coach. He's got these guys going in the right direction.
Yeah, one more thing before we move on. I thought this was kind of a little bit of a cool story. Was Rob's last game ever as a major leaguer. They gave him the lineup and everything. And in the 6th hole was Michael Early. And what Michael Early signed, the lineup card, because everybody signed it and gave it to him, was next time I see you, we'll be coaching against each other. Yeah. So it was kind of cool to have that. But moving on into another sweep, we'll kind of be very brief with this one because this is the one that you saw. LSU, I would say, holds on in all 3 of these games. Yeah. They played like absolute hot dog water and still won, which I think is impressive in itself.
Yeah, I mean, Friday was probably the only game that wasn't seen as close, but it was close in the beginning. To mention, the wind was going crazy in Baton Rouge all 3 days, so there were some balls that snuck out that probably shouldn't have gotten out on a good day.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
Cade Anderson, he threw very well. I think he was the best starter out of all 3 of them. Ianson and Shores weren't that good. Even we saw William Schmidt, their freshman dog, he struggled. But I mean, it just shows how this bullpen has been. Zach Howell, Kason Evans, they have been phenomenal so far.
DJ Primo pitched in all 3 games.
Yeah, DJ Primo
I don't think he phenomenal. Gave a run. I don't even think he gave up a hit. I'd have to double check that.
I think he gave up a hit yesterday. I think got pulled for what's his name for Cowan again.
I'll say this again. I tweeted it and I got a whole bunch of Tennessee fans for some reason who didn't like it. LSU's power numbers, I think, have been the most impressive thing so far. And I'm not going to say that they were like, a NEAC team that was going to hit single-digit home runs.
Yeah.
But they're like fourth in the conference in home runs, I believe.
Yeah, the power's starting to come for them
they're
now.
They're first in doubles, which is another sign of like a really good power hitting team. I can be honest with you. Everything I thought LSU was going to be, I feel like they're the opposite. Like they really don't steal a ton of bases. They don't strike out at all. They have a good bullpen. I thought that the bullpen was kind of going to be a little bit shaky. But the bullpen's like a deep, deep bullpen. Like it's quietly, I would say it's even up there with Arkansas's bullpen.
Yeah, and they still, we're going to keep on talking about this guy till he throws. Gavin Guidry, there's been no Gavin Guidry. Jay Johnson said he's day-to-day now, which that could mean he's ready for Omaha. I don't know. There's been no.
It's a back, right?
Yeah, it's a back injury. I don't know. He said on his radio show today that it's day-to-day now. So hopefully, I doubt he throws against UNO tomorrow, but maybe against I doubt he goes against Texas then. But hopefully he's back soon. But it shows how deep this LSU bullpen has been. I mean, you mentioned it. DJ Primo threw in all 3 games. Zach Cowan's been electric. Kason Evans, the freshman, he missed. This came out today. Shout out Koki Riley, the LSU reporter for the Advocate. He was listening to he was live tweeting Jay Johnson's radio show. Said that Jay Johnson missed his buddy's wedding because
I saw that
was going on a second visit to LSU. So I thought that was a funny story, and how Kason Evans, a true freshman, already got 4 saves for the Tigers. But I mean, pitching's been good. It's had its moments of shakiness, but I mean, they've been saved by the hitting. I mean, you have a true freshman leading off for you, Derek Curiel, who's been nothing but phenomenal.
Yeah, he's got a 600 OPS.
Yeah. I mean, and you
talked OBS.
You talked about it. I mean, the leading stolen base leader is not who you think it is for LSU. It's not like Michael Braswell. It's not Curiel. It's not Chris Stanfield. It's Jake Brown. And Jake Brown came off the bench on Friday and went 2 for 2 and nearly put a ball out. And he was phenomenal off the bench. He leads the team in stolen bases, and Jared Bear Jones is still second in stolen bases. But, I mean, Jay talked about it on Friday in his press conference about how this team, they're not going to be as aggressive, it seems like, on the base path. They're going to use they're going to find the gap a lot. They're going to have a lot of doubles. They're going to have a lot of doubles. They seem to be finding the gaps a lot already. And that goes for, like, the swings that Curiel, Jared Jones, Steven Monster Malam, Daniel Dickinson, the kind of swings they put on the ball, they're gap finder swings.
They really are. I do have one question before we move on. Have you seen a lot of kids with the earring that Daniel Dickinson has? Is that caught on yet?
No, not yet. I mean, I haven't seen a lot of. For some reason, when I instantly get to LSU, I just go straight to the coach's box and just get a hot dog. I get a hot dog. Talk to some of the reporters. I don't, for some reason, I haven't like wandered around the box to like watch BP and like watch the fans yet. But I think I've seen a couple kids catch on with the earrings that Daniel Dickinson. Jay Johnson said that might be a trendsetter though. So
that'll be interesting when he's gone and moved on into pro ball. If that's going to come back to bite some of those kids. Moving on to, I think the tightest contested series is we had a split. I know that you and I went back and forth on it. Auburn takes 2 of 3 from the Vanderbilt Commodores. Auburn does it without Ike Irish as he is dealing with a back injury. I think it's a 10-day thing, so I think he's going to be out this weekend too as well. They did it a variety of different ways. Derek Fabian, they put in the 3-hole. I thought that was a little bit crazy. Mm-hmm. If you would have told me that Derek Fabian would be hitting in the 3-hole at the start of the year, or that Derek Fabian's hitting 350 for him, I would have said you were crazy. When you have guys out, you need people to pick up the slack. And Fralick behind the plate, who is kind of where Ike Irish would have been, he had a really good weekend. I know when I watched the game on Saturday, he looked really good receiving.
Yeah.
Cade Fisher, I think he wasn't really the sharpest, but I think that kind of shows the depth that the Vandy lineup has. But they really went after JT Thompson on Friday. I was a little bit surprised by that. I thought it was going to be, honestly, I thought it was going to be reverse of what happened. What Auburn did to Vandy, I thought Vandy was going to do to Auburn.
Yeah, I agree. I thought they were going to chase Sam Dutton early. I wasn't expecting to be watching this game and seeing Sam Dutton pitch into the 7th inning.
Yeah. I mean, he's good, but if you remember correctly, he kind of usually goes into like a 4th, 5th, which is fine for what Alabama needs, or for what Auburn needs, I will say.
So, key thing that I saw from him, he got 10 ground ball outs, and he only walked one person. He went 93 pitches in 7 innings. It wasn't like Vandy was like working the count with him. He was letting him to get quick outs and work deep into that game. If they chased him early, we could have been talking about possibly a Vanderbilt sweep with how the bullpen might have went. But
yeah, I would agree with that. For Vandy, I know that Brody Johnston has and was supposed to carry some of the load, but at times it still does kind of feel like the RJ Austin show.
Yeah. I mean,
and again, I think Vasteen's a good player. I think Holcomb's a good player. It's a lot of guys that have been around for a while. I know Humphrey coming over was a kind of a big transfer for him. Obviously, they're still missing, I think, Mancini, as I know he didn't play on Saturday when I watched the game.
Mm-hmm.
They leave a lot of guys on pace.
Yeah, they left a lot on.
This doesn't feel like a Tim Corbin team,
like
at all. Which is funny because that was the whole point, was they wanted to kind of get a new coaching staff in there, so it didn't feel like a Tim Corbin team.
Yeah.
I mean, they're a good team. I think they're a very solid SEC team. I think they're a middle-of-the-road SEC team.
Mm-hmm.
But this team doesn't feel like a Tim Corbin-led team. Like, they don't do a lot of the game within the game stuff, I would say. They strike out a monster load, too, as well.
Yeah.
They struck out 10 times on Saturday. Ethan McIlvain, I thought he was going to be a little bit better than he was. I know this is the first time I got to kind of sit down and watch him. He didn't really impress me a ton.
No.
I mean, Ethan McIlvain and JT Thompson are both have ERAs over 7. Ironically, so does Cade Fisher. So it's still early, and those things will kind of level out. But I think this series told me a lot more about Vanderbilt than it told me about Auburn. I'm still very wary on Auburn. I don't know if that's how you feel.
It made me feel a little bit better about Auburn. I think they have what it takes to win a lot of series against good SEC teams. Vanderbilt, on the other hand,
I'll say this. I think Auburn is the litmus test. That if you beat Auburn, you're a good team, and if Auburn beats you, you're not very good.
Yeah, I can agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's my hot take.
So Oregon State's not a good team, or
they're what, 7 in the D1 poll?
Yeah, 7 in the D1 poll, but Auburn beat them.
Let me see where I have Oregon State ranked. I have them 14th. Here's the one where I probably have the biggest differentiator. The Oklahoma Sooners go to Founders and take 2 of 3. They didn't get the start that they wanted out of Malachi Witherspoon on Saturday. I think the bullpen really wasn't that impressive on Saturday. And then on Sunday, they're down to their last out, and they poke one through on 1st and 3rd, and then ended up winning it in extras. It's a good hitting Oklahoma team. And a lot of people I think are giving them the credit that they deserve.
I think they're a very good hitting team, and I think their bullpen should have gotten more credit for what they did Sunday. And I think Saturday was kind of just
an anomaly. I would say it's an anomaly. They've done this a few times where they bring guys on short rest, or they're kind of tinkering with some stuff, and it really kind of comes back to bite him in the butt. I mean, Malachi Witherspoon, you kind of blinked, and he had allowed a whole bunch of runs, I would say.
Yeah.
He had that kind of really bad where he was rolling, and then you're like, okay, like bounce back inning, and then it wasn't a bounce back inning. Jake McCoy was pretty decent for South Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
Tyler Pitzner at the back end of that bullpen was really, really legit for him too as well. South Carolina is obviously still working through what their lineup's going to be. As you know, I didn't see Nolan Araki. I feel like this weekend didn't tell us a lot about anything. I feel like I knew what South Carolina was coming into the weekend, and I knew what Oklahoma was coming into the weekend. And while South Carolina gave them a good game, at the end, this is the outcome I kind of expected.
Yeah, I would have thought that South Carolina Sunday salvaged this one with SQ on the mound. And if you told me that Cam Johnson only threw to 2 batters, I would have told you, oh, yeah, they definitely took that game, especially with the result of Saturday. I think South Carolina's pitching is going to be good for the SEC. Still a lot of questions for their lineup. You're right. I mean, McCoy threw great. Tyler Pitzer piggybacked off of him, finished that game off. Matthew Becker, who's in their rotation, he was their Friday night guy, wasn't he, last week?
Yeah.
And now he's barely going 2/3 of an inning. He looks like he's having trouble with his command.
Didn't he have an injury thing, so they pushed him back? Or is it a performance thing? I thought he had an injury thing.
No, you're thinking SQ, I think. SQ had
I think that is.
SQ had the injury, but Becker's just been – he threw okay against Clemson, and then he just was terrible last weekend, I think.
Yeah, I will say this. The lineup has a little bit more thump. It did get a little chippy, too, as well. As I was following it on Twitter, and I saw a bunch of OU fans tweet about Ethan Petrie being dirty. It's going to be a long season if they think Ethan Petrie's dirty in the SEC. I didn't think it was anything out of the ordinary. Again, I still I think it's OU, Mississippi State. They're going to be playing a pissed off Mississippi State team. So it'll be another kind of litmus test for Oklahoma. Oklahoma, they did this last year, I think, where they just kind of flew under the radar and you're like, check the box, they won, check the box, they won. That's really what it kind of felt like this weekend. Yeah, South Carolina gave them that game on Sunday. South Carolina, I think, is a little bit better than a lot of people were giving them credit for.
Mm-hmm.
But moving on to, I would say, the biggest asterisk of the weekend, the Texas Longhorns and the Mississippi State Bulldogs. Mississippi State gets swept by Texas. They play Friday, 2 on Sunday, 7-inning doubleheader. I will say it was 7 innings for both teams, so we can't really fault them for that. Texas stole all 3 of these games in a good way. They had a great catch from Tommy Farmer in game 2. They played terrific defense. Max Ballou had that big go-ahead home run. I mean this in a complimentary way. Texas stole this series.
Yeah, Texas. So Texas moved into my top 5 into my rankings after this series. That's how impressed I was with this team. They did steal all 3 of these games. I mean, Pico Cone, he threw very well. He had that
Pico Cone did throw really well.
He gave up the home run to Galvin in the 2nd inning. Then he kind of cruised, and then the 6th inning, there was an error, I think, and then this bullpen just pissed down their pants. Texas proved that they can swing the ball or hit the ball very well against this pitching staff. And I was very high on Mississippi State's pitching staff this weekend. And I mean, Jared Spencer didn't even have his best stuff. It
was decent, but I know Sauce always talks about, winning when your starter doesn't have their best stuff. Yeah. I think it was a grinded out kind of outing for him. Like I saw a ton of those from Ryan Prager last year.
Yeah. I mean, and the fact that their bullpen was rested, I guess, on not having to play Saturday, and these games both being 7 innings, Schlossnagle could have gone to the bullpen much quicker in these doubleheader, and that's what he did. I mean, Rojas and Volantis were phenomenal as usual.
I think they brought back Volantis from Friday, by the way, I believe. But here's the thing that I think is kind of cool about this Texas team is they faced a little bit of internal adversity. For reference, from everything that I've been hearing from Fall Stuff and from a few of the coaches that I talked to, it was every indication that Easton Winfield had won the job over Tommy Farmer. Then Max Ballou gets sick, is moved into the DH role. And Tommy Farmer has been having just a monster season so far, and he's kind of solidified himself into that role. The other thing of that is I think Rylan Galvan has kind of felt the pressure of them wanting to play Cole Chamberlain. I know they moved him down to 9th in the order. I know that I think at other times he said as high as 5th. So I think he's feeling a little bit of the pressure in a good way with Cole Chamberlain pushing him. But yeah, I mean, they win so many different ways, and they're like, it's just it feels like it's Jim Schlossnagle out coaching Chris Lemonis, which is so weird because Chris Lemonis isn't a bad coach.
No.
I don't think it warrants him getting fired. I mean, he's tried everything with this Mississippi State team. Like they are quietly, I say quietly because I think a lot of people are really down on them. They are quietly having a very similar season to Texas A&M.
I agree.
Except that they played a little bit easier of a competition and took care of business more so than A&M. But if A&M beats Cal Poly on Sunday or Mississippi State drops one of those Sunday games against Queens, they looked very similar in Houston to me, and they looked very similar in the SEC this weekend for me. They just lost, and it's going to be a weird. They need, like I said this about A&M, they need somebody to be a dog. They both have front end starters in Pico Con and Ryan Prager, but they just don't have any juice to them. Like I know that you always give me crap for saying they're boring. This was they're boring.
Yeah, they're very boring.
Like even when they win, they feel like Kentucky last year. I know this is a horrible example because Kentucky played in Omaha, but when they win, you're like, oh, okay, they won. Like that was the game. And then when they lose, you're like, oh yeah, like there's the Mississippi State. Like yeah, like they were in it. Like that's baseball, huh? Like that kind of thing.
Yeah, I watched this. So Friday I was split screening it with my laptop and then the LSU game. It was kind of an exciting game until Texas took it over, and then Sunday I was watching it. And it's like, oh,
yep. But hold on before you talk about Sunday. But you always knew in the back of your head, you're like, Texas is going to make this a game. Can Mississippi State stop Texas when Texas gets a free runners on? And they didn't. That was kind of the story of that game. And then Texas made some really good plays defensively.
Yeah, I mean Texas did everything perfect to win them that game. Mississippi State was they're kind of just hoping they played like a perfect game, and it's like, oh, a Texas runner got on. Okay, no, don't panic. But
but it felt like everybody was like, don't panic. Like, don't panic. Like it felt like everybody was panicking.
Yeah.
Like you kind of hold your breath a little bit. And I mean, this Texas team is so clutch. Let me pull up their wins here and just make sure I'm not misremembering it. Because again, they've won 17 games in a row.
Mm-hmm.
Close game against UT Arlington in a midweek where their pitching dominated. Friday against Sarah Clanner, they only won 4-2. In Las Vegas, if you remember correctly, they won those games in a variety of different ways. Yep. Dartmouth, 4-3, 3-2, 4-1. Like, they always get the big hit. And I will say this. If there's not a ton of negatives with this Texas team. And honestly, I'm probably jinxing it like I did when I said, okay, like the one hole with Tennessee is that they've won, like they haven't been behind. The one hole with Texas is they've always been behind. So law of averages says you're not going to get the big hit. But, I mean, every single time Texas gets that big hit, like, it's just who's it going to be? Like, it feels like they're drawing like the baseball gods are drawing a name out of the hat, and they're like, oh, like Jalen Flores gets to be the hero.
Yeah.
Like on Sunday, Rylan Galvan gets to be the hero. Like
I think Rylan Galvan was the hero this whole weekend for them. He hit the ball. He had a home run on Friday. He had the big home run yesterday. I think he, like you mentioned.
But Baloo had that big home run too.
Yes. You're right. It is just different guys every time. But that's a good thing about this Texas lineup.
And Kimball Schusler really hasn't had that good of a year. And you don't even realize it because they have so many different guys that come through.
Yeah, he's hitting. I think he was hitting third. He was hitting third a couple weeks ago, and now he's hitting eighth for them.
He was hitting leadoff to open the season.
Yeah, but I think that's the good coaching job that Jim Schlossnagle's been doing, and just it shows how deep this lineup. You have Adrian Rodriguez, a true freshman, hitting 4-hole for you.
Yeah, and he's DHing. That's the other thing is they've made adjustments on the fly where he was DHing earlier in the year. When they get Baloo back, they slide Adrian Rodriguez into because I know his defense wasn't like the best.
Mm-hmm.
But Casey Bormas really picked up from he's hitting 330 as I have his stats up here. 330 with 3 home runs, 13 RBIs. I believe all of those have come like in the last 2 weeks.
Yeah.
I was really worried about Casey Borba not having a spot. And I said that to multiple people around Texas. I was like, yeah, I think Casey Borba's talented. I just don't know where he's going to fit in. For as much as Chris Labonis, where he's trying everything and it's not working, everything that Jim Schlossnagle does, it's like that scene in Austin Powers where he hits 17 and he gets that 4. That's what it feels like with Jim Schlossnagle. It's like, okay, we'll move Rodriguez to the DH and Borba into third. And Borba is like, hell yeah, I'm in the lineup, and like is banging the ball around the air. Like, it's just an incredible job by how much depth this Texas team has, and it's the same way with the bullpen. They complement each other so well.
Yeah, they've been. It's like a next man up mentality, but it's like I don't know how to explain it. It's just this Texas lineup's been very good. Plugging it's kind of like how LSU's been with how in the outfield and at third base they've had some,
that's a good analogy. Yeah,
they've had some competition with Michael Braswell and Tanner Reeves, Ashton Larson, Josh Pearson, Jake Brown. You have all these good guys, and Jay Johnson's talked about it. How you have all these good guys, and then when they're in the game, they do what they do so good. Michael Braswell on Saturday, he was the hero of that game. He laid down 3 bunts, had 3 RBIs. He had the game-winning RBI. But it's when these guys' names are called, they come in and they do their job so perfectly that it's like, dang, how do I take him out of the lineup? Like, I can't take him out. I got to ride with the hot hand. So
yeah, we saw it too with Florida, and when Pierce Coppola was rolling and Jake Clemente, it was the other thing where it really is like a fight. That's all 8 games that we had in the SEC. I can be honest with you, I needed to double and triple check just to make sure because this was such a shorter show. Really appreciate everybody tuning in. Have a great St. Patrick's Day. Let me pull up the schedule because I believe we have a Thursday game this week. Let me double check that as I pull up the schedule here. I'm like 90% sure we have a Thursday game. Yeah, Texas A&M and Vanderbilt will be on Thursday, so we will see you Thursday at noon. Thanks everybody for tuning in. Really appreciate everything, and have a fun St. Patrick's Day, I guess.